that same year in July, my cousin had a cousin that I'm close with. She's my age. She had her third child, a little boy, and everything was fine with the pregnancy. This was July 3rd, 2008, and she had the baby, and then all of a sudden, man, she started bleeding. She started bleeding like lost half of her blood, and we thought she was going to die. And so she lived in Wichita, which is where I was born, and we just didn't know if she was going to live. So my mom and I got in the car right away, and we headed down to Wichita, just to be by there. We didn't even know she was going to be alive by the time we got there. But anyway, we got there and we got to see her, and she got better. And the doctor said she's going to make it. We don't even know how she's going to make it, but she's going to make it. And so we were there in the waiting room, just waiting for new news, anything to happen. And this next piece is just absolutely crazy. I don't know how else to say that. But we were in the hospital room with my dad's brother's family, and this man comes up to me. He seemed like a tall man. For whatever reason, I can remember back to that moment, and he was standing in the shadow. I just simply couldn't see his face. And that probably was because I was a little distraught about my cousin and things that were going on. But he came up to me, and if this is me, he came up to me, and he stood, 4 or 5 inches from my face, and he put his hand on my shoulder. And then he said hi to my mom, like he had, he obviously knew her. And it was just, I very clearly remember that it being really weird. And then his wife came over, and she put her hand on me. And they were standing really close, and I was starting to kind of back up at this moment. And they introduced themselves to me, and I didn't even catch their names. What was going on with my cousin that I just absolutely love, and them kind of in my business. I just, it was whatever. And finally they left. The way they looked at me was really, really crazy. But anyway, it was what it was. And so my mom and I stayed a while, and finally we went and had something to eat. We were sitting in a Sonic, and I said, I got to ask you, those people knew you. Whew, that was weird. And she was like, I never thought that I would tell you this. And if I ever thought I was going to tell you, I never thought of how to tell you. I couldn't tell you when you were a little boy. You just don't tell little boys this. And I couldn't tell you when you were drinking because, of how you drank. It just didn't seem right. But that man was George Tiller. And I was like, George Tiller, like the murdering, the abortionist George Tiller. She said, yes. And that was his wife, Jean. And I said, okay. And she goes, your birth mother was from Oklahoma. And her desire for you was to have an abortion. She went from Oklahoma to Wichita to see George Tiller. And presumably to have the abortion. Now that didn't happen, obviously. What did happen, and I don't know in whatever series of conversations or anything like that how this was decided, but not only did they not perform the abortion, but George Tiller and his wife took this woman into their home, and she lived with him and his family for the last 4 months of her pregnancy. In fact, he delivered me. His name is on my birth certificate. I'd never seen it before. But George Tiller is in the OB's line item on my birth certificate. And she told me all this, and I was like, you gotta be kidding.
Wow.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard. Ever. And the blessing out of it isn't to change anybody's mind about George Tiller, okay? At all. The blessing out of it is that however that worked, whatever conversation this woman and him had, and how does it go so far that he would take me into his own home and then deliver me? when he stood before me at the hospital there, I'll never know what was going through his mind. Ever. I can't even ask, as you guys know what happened with George. I wasn't the one that got away. I wasn't that. But I hope that my humanity, in his eyes, made some sort of difference. You know what I mean? I don't know if that ever did. Like I said, I'll never know. I don't know why he did it. To see George Tiller's name on my birth certificate and know that self-proclaimed killed, murdered 50,000 babies. Really? I mean, it's unfathomable to me. George Tiller, really, from the very beginning of him being friends with my dad's brother, he wanted to present me to my parents like he was coming down from on high. This is from my mom saying this. To present this baby to my parents. In fact, he even saw me when I was about 2 years old. My mom and my aunt and my cousin, the cousin who was in the hospital all these years later, we're out there at the mall or something like that. And George Tiller, they ran into him, and he picked me up and he threw me up in the air, and then gave me a medical exam in the hospital, or in the mall, basically, and scolded my mom for not taking good enough care of this baby. It is so opposite of anything like you were talking about, anything that you could ever imagine. And again, this isn't to come and glorify George Tiller at all. There's nothing to say. It's disgusting. When he was shot, I had to have somebody give me the word for what I was feeling, and it was ambivalent. It was good and bad. I felt good, and I felt sort of, this guy's part of my life. He didn't give me life. God gave me life. Mm-hmm. God directs how all of this works. But he had a hand in that. And I have to say that it's never caused me to want to find my birth mother or anything like that. Maybe we can talk about some of those things at lunch. But the most amazing thing happened to me. I said earlier that I never thought I'd live to be 30. I just never planned to be 30. Now, my 30th birthday, I was in the hospital with my wife, holding my 2-day-old baby with my 2-year-old next to me. All I did all day was say thank you. Just love on these kids. Love on my wife. That's my 3-year-old. She's hilarious. We went to go swimming with her yesterday. It was fun. Let's start a new job tomorrow. I got like 2 months off. It's been awesome. And there's the little one that I was holding.
Life.
I don't have to tell you guys this, but abortion destroys a legacy. And God's in control, man. And there's so many good things that come even from the act itself. But through my own destructive way, and even Tiller's, in spite of all of that, these little girls have a wonderful chance. And in fact, she's 9 months old. My wife's pregnant again, and it's due Christmas Eve.
Praise God.
Praise God. And I think that's the thing. It's the most fun that I've never had in my entire life. And I just want to make it went a little faster than I anticipated. It's been around time. But I really want to say to you guys, it's amazing. Those small little decisions, for whatever reason that I wasn't aborted, that George Tiller had this woman in his home those things have huge implications. You know, the stuff that you guys do here, simple stuff, is going to have incredible impact just for what you're doing. You know, and I would imagine that being involved intimately in pro-life, because I think the only way that you're not is you have to flat out ignore it. But it would be there'd be a lot of discouragement, and I don't even understand why there's enemies to this. I don't get it. I don't have to talk about that. You guys know that much better than I do. But don't fall down in the face of discouragement. There's hope. For me, it's Jesus, and that's what I have been given. And I've been given this life to simply come here and talk to you guys. This is you know, it's awesome. And I just want to tell you that just from how emotional and everything that this is, one foot in front of the other. You know, you can make a difference one day at a time. That's what you guys are doing. And that's so. I don't leave here just sailing because of just the fact that you guys, young people, are here to make that difference. And that's awesome. So that's pretty much all I have.
Awesome.